Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone for attending the high school mock trial. This is round 4. We are now live streaming and the Honorable Charlie Willman is presiding. Mock trial is now in session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so I'm going to cover a couple of things that they've asked us to cover. First of all, for exhibits, I know at least last year when I was doing some of this, people would share screens and use their exhibits on, in a screen share. You certainly can do that if you want, but we all, as scoring panelists and presiding judge, have copies of the exhibits, either hard copies or on computers. So you need only refer them by numbers. You don't need to share unless you want to do that. The second thing is if there's any technical difficulties, I am authorized to stop the clock, and I would ask the timers to stop the clock. We're in the middle of a director cross and suddenly somebody disappears. We need to stop the clock. We'll fix that. We keep it till up to 15 minutes, but I haven't had any problem this morning when I presided. I do understand, and you guys may know there were some technical problems yesterday. So with that, I'm going to go through some of the standard things that we need to do, and then we'll take up preliminary matters on each side. First of all, I can kind of see everybody, but I need to make sure there's no coaches, parents, or anybody else other than team members and the scoring panelist and myself. Anybody else there, they need to leave the meeting and join on the YouTube. As you all know, this is being recorded. There were some issues that actually came up in some of the earlier tournaments that the recordings are online and people can actually see competition rounds. We've made sure that isn't happening. I think the videos will be available once we get through the state tournament. The videos will be available, but I'm not positive of that. But no one else is allowed to video this competition. No recesses will be taken except in the case of emergency. If there is, please let me know. Obviously, we don't want anybody to be uncomfortable, but we want to keep things moving. I know you guys have been at this for 2 days and you want to get to the end result, which is who gets those awards at the very end. So please keep in mind we won't be taking recesses unless there's a need to. If there are any disputes arising out of the competition, I'll try to remember to ask you that after the second closing argument or the final closing argument. And you can make those at that time, or if you think there's some other reason to do it before then, but time to do it is at the end of the competition. Once we close the trial, if there are no disputes, you waive your right to bring those disputes. Strict compliance with the time requirements is a scoring, it's part of the scoring. In other words, you need to comply with time, and then if you don't, you could be scored down for that. Okay, I think that kind of covers everything. Oh, just a couple of procedural things so you know how I do things. First of all, I allow for cross-examinations, redirect, and recross. You don't need to take it, but you'll get an opportunity to do that. Obviously, if somebody doesn't redirect, there's no recross. And you know the rules on what the scope of those are. You expect to abide by those. On objections, I'll let the person making the objection make the objection, give me the reason and or the rule for the objection. The other attorney will have a chance to respond. The person making the objection will get a chance to reply. That will be it. I mean, if there was something exceptional, I would consider it, but usually there should not be. So make sure you know when you're doing objections, you're only going to get one shot if you're responding to it. So make sure you get all your reasons in. Okay, I think that's all the procedural stuff. Attorney for the plaintiff, are there any preliminary matters?
Yes, Your Honor. We have 3 matters.
Go ahead.
We request that the court has prior rulings on this matter.
I'm aware of that. Yes, thank you.
Along with the jury has all instructions and stipulated facts.
They have a complete case packet, so yes, they do.
Along with a little bit of time in between each testimony to transition, as we are all competing from the same building and need a bit of time to switch computers.
not a problem. And if I hurry you, remind me that I'm rushing you. You take your time. I want to make sure you're comfortable when you get started. I don't want anybody to be nervous because they were rushing to a computer. So thank you for asking. Anything else?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Defense, is there any preliminary matters?
No, Your Honor, we have no preliminary matters at this time.
Great. Then we get this started. The plaintiff may present their opening statement.
And before I begin, I just wanted to make sure our timekeepers are ready.
Thank you. And that reminds me, thank you for asking that. Timekeepers. By the way, I forgot one thing. When you're doing videos, you guys are already doing that. It is the person presenting. That is, in this case, the opening would be the only one on the video. Once we get into the testimony, it is the direct cross and witness are visible. Timers, if you need to show your time, or if there's something else comes up with time, turn on your camera, wave at me or something. I hopefully will be paying attention and see you, so that we can go. I do have the chat open. I see both timers have told me they're ready. If you're posting time in the chat, that's fine. You can do that as well, whichever way your team is prepared to do it. I am monitoring the chat, and we'll try to keep an eye on that as well. Thank you for bringing that up. You may, if you will, restate your name, because your name doesn't show up, so that the scoring panelists know your name for purposes of scoring.
Raven Chamberlain.
Thank you.
And am I good to begin, Your Honor?
You are.
Profits over people. Ladies and gentlemen, you are here today because of Lush Fertilizer's persistent need to put their own profits over the health and wellness of their people. Young, smart, talented people like Dakota Wires. Now you'll hear from Dakota herself today, now a 20-year-old woman, enduring the detrimental effects of cancer, more specifically non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Now, cancer has taken so much away from Dakota, but one of the largest things it has taken away is her ability to play piano. Her ability to play piano was not only her passion and dream, but her connection to her late grandfather. Through Dakota, you will hear how she received a full ride scholarship from Juilliard, but was unable to accept due to the effects of her cancer. Ladies and gentlemen, you will see how Lush Fertilizer continues to put their profits over their people in today's case. Now, Lush Fertilizer, like its name suggests, makes fertilizer. They have this new, incredible, game-changing fertilizer with an ingredient called Drufo. Drufo is a chemical bonding agent, and today, ladies and gentlemen, Lush is going to try to tell you how amazing Drufo is. But ladies and gentlemen, it is a proven carcinogen. You will hear the story of Dakota Wires and Lush Fertilizer through 6 witnesses today, 3 from plaintiff and 3 from defense. Plaintiff will call our 3 witnesses first: Dr. Casey Rogers, Carson Durst, and Dakota Wires. Dr. Casey Rogers is a current professor in horticulture and entomology at the University of California, Berkeley. He will tell you of his copious amounts of research and reports on Drufo and how ultimately it is a proven carcinogen. Carson Durst will tell you of their personal relationship with Blake Doncourt, the current CEO of Lush, and how it quickly deteriorated after they started working for them at Lush. Carson Durst will also tell you how Lush continues to put their own profits over their people through not baking Drufo. Next, Dakota Wires will be called. Dakota will tell you how she worked at Hayden Landscaping for many years and all throughout those years used Lush Fertilizer. Dakota will tell you her heart-wrenching story of lost opportunities due to Lush Fertilizer's need to put their own profits over people. Next, defense will call their 3 witnesses. They will call Dr. Devin Williams, Skylar Wires, and finally Blake Doncourt. Dr. Devin Williams will tell you of their research and reports on Drufo, but ladies and gentlemen, ultimately they will admit that Drufo is carcinogenic. Next, Skylar Wires will be called. Skylar Wires is Dakota's estranged twin, and ladies and gentlemen, they will show you the possible bias in today's case as they are going against their own twin. Ladies and gentlemen, Skylar Wires will tell you how much research they did on Drufo, but they only researched it for 1 year. Ladies and gentlemen, Skylar will show you how they put their own profits over the health and wellness of their twin. Next, Blake Doncourt will be called. Blake Doncourt is the current CEO of Lush, and they will tell you how they never heard of any concerns regarding Drufo in their company, but ladies and gentlemen, they will admit to risks. The plaintiff has to prove to you by the preponderance of the evidence that Lush fertilizer is negligent, and that is what we are here to do. We ask you to see how Lush fertilizer continues to put their own profits over their people through Drufo and give Dakota the helping hand she deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. Defense opening.
Hello, Your Honor.
Hi.
Am I ready to begin? Am I good to go?
You are ready to go when you are Finn Vaughn, right?
Yes, my name is Finn Vaughn, just so all the scorers know, and I'll begin right now. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, good afternoon, and we appreciate you being here with us today. My name is Finn Vaughn, and I represent the defense in this case. Ladies and gentlemen, today you will hear evidence that Drufo is not carcinogenic at all, and that Lush is not at all at fault for the tragedy that has affected Miss Weirs. It was not their fault. Lush fertilizer did not have anything to do with the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that Miss Weirs is suffering from. Miss Weirs was an employee for Haven Landscaping. In the years that she worked there as a landscaping technician, Miss Weirs' primary task was spreading seed and fertilizer. In this time, he did not exclusively use Lush fertilizer. When he worked, he used to spread fertilizer inside of places such as office buildings and shopping malls, despite the warnings to only use Lush's fertilizer in outside places. Now, even though there is no risk of Drufo being carcinogenic, Lush still instructed that whoever uses their products should follow their safety guidelines just to be as careful as absolutely possible. Miss Weirs did not take the proper safety precautions when using the fertilizer. Not only was she was instructed by her employer to wear long sleeves, pants, gloves, and a mask, all of which he did not do when he used the fertilizer. After many years of this, she became sick. But I remind you that correlation does not equal causation. Prior to releasing their product, Lush had taken every necessary precaution to make sure that it was not at all carcinogenic. Miss Weirs used many different chemicals during their time landscaping and did not take the safety precautions, which is why it is not Lush's fault. Today, you will be hearing from 3 witnesses during this case. One is Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, who will tell you how he was not aware of any risks associated with Drufo and how Lush found absolutely 0 carcinogens in their fertilizer. He will tell you that Lush is committed to environmental and physical safety and would never hide any of their findings from the public. You will also hear from Skylar Weirs, a journalist who discusses how Drufo is good for the environment and not harmful. They will also tell us that because of Drufo's efficacy, confirmed carcinogens do not need to be added to the product. Finally, you will listen to Dr. Devin Williams, the head of Lush's fertilizer research team, who will disprove the idea that Drufo can somehow cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and tell you that Drufo is safe. The plaintiff in this case holds the burden of proof. They must prove by preponderance of evidence, which means that it is more likely than not that Lush fertilizer and Drufo caused Miss Weirs' non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Even if the plaintiff has met that burden, because of jury instruction number 8, if the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, failed to do something that reasonably careful people would do under the same or similar circumstances to protect themselves from the claimed danger created by the product, then the monetary damages can be reduced by the percent at which the plaintiff was at fault. Ms. Weirs got unlucky. She does not deserve to have the terrible disease that she does, but it is misguided to blame Drufo and Lush Fertilizer for their tragic misfortune. This product is safe, and it did not contribute to Dakota's cancer. It wasn't Lush's fault. Once you have been presented with all the evidence of this case, you will find that Lush is not at fault and rule in favor of the defense. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bud. Scores, I'll give you a chance to score. Anyone need more time? Everybody ready? Okay. Plaintiff, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
Okay, and ma'am, would you please introduce yourself rather than just attorney?
My name is
Your
Rachel.
name. I'm sorry, I'm sorry again.
Rachel Yet.
And everybody else's name is up, so I think we're good. All right, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name and spell the last for the record.
Dr. Casey Rogers, Rogers.
Who are you?
Well, Ms. Yet, that's a bit of an introspective question for sure. I'd say first and foremost, I would describe myself as curious. You know, I love research. I want to know the truth behind anything that catches my interest.
Okay. Tell me about your educational background.
Well, it's a long one. I got a degree of science in agriculture and chemistry. I went on from that. I spent long nights studying and poring over research. I ended up with a PhD in the areas of horticulture and entomology.
Do you still work in that field?
I do, yes. I still currently work, well, for one, as a professor teaching classes at Berkeley University in California. And in addition, I'm currently working at a chemistry lab, just delving more into the toxicology of different chemicals.
Tell me some more about your work history.
Well, after working towards my PhD, I switched to start working at an unnamed confidential chemical company. I did research into different chemicals contexts, what their makeup was, what they would do to different people, how they could be used within products. And I would compile those and draw conclusions from them and submit them to my superiors.
Thank you. And you mentioned your research. What are some other of your research interests?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, my research interests rely on the effect of toxicants on human beings. Especially the prolonged exposure of humans to chemicals, what's safe, what isn't safe, what happens when you're around a certain thing for a long period of time.
Thank you. Your Honor, now under Rule 702, I ask that Dr. Casey Rogers be admitted as an expert witness in chemistry, agriculture, and prolonged exposure to chemicals.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to request to do a voir dire examination on the witness's credentials.
You may proceed, Ms. Lindquist.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you work in entomology.
Well, I work in a lot of fields. Right now, I teach some classes on entomology, but I would say my work first and foremost is in that chemistry lab, looking through different parts of the toxicology.
Thank you. Thank you. A yes or no answer will suffice. Something that you work in is entomology.
Yes, I do work in the area of entomology as one of my many interests.
All right. And entomology is the study of bugs?
It is, it's the study of insects.
All right. So your degrees are in agriculture, chemistry, and entomology?
Yes, that's all my formal education.
And you worked in a chemical company before your previous job?
I did. I got a lot of experience looking at data, drawing conclusions from it, figuring out what different chemicals do.
All right. Thank you. Again, a yes or no answer will suffice for these questions. And you have a PhD, but it is not an MD, correct?
No, I have no medical degree.
And you have never been to medical school?
I have not been to medical school. I would probably enjoy it.
And none of your degrees give you the right to diagnose or treat medical conditions?
No, not to diagnose or treat them.
And you're not a medical doctor?
No, I'm not a doctor in the medical area.
Your Honor, the defense objects not to the witness being qualified as an expert, but testifying to anything relating to the effects of Drufo on the human body. They are not qualified in this field.
So let me ask you, as I understand the qualifications of attended were as a chemist, expert as chemist in the field of agriculture and long-term exposure to chemicals. Do you specifically object to any of those three categories?
Your Honor, in the field of the effects of chemicals, that can usually be applied to the human body, and this witness should not be able to testify on that behalf.
So you object to that third category of potential qualification?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Yet, your response.
Your Honor, as you've heard from this witness, in their previous jobs and the jobs that they are working in now, they do have specialized knowledge of prolonged exposure to chemicals. And though they are not a doctor and don't work in a medical field, they still know what exposure to chemicals on the human body looks like.
Last word, Ms. Lindquist.
I'm sorry, could you please restate your question?
Oh, do you have anything to respond to that? You get the last word.
Your Honor, even though this witness does have a previous background, we do not object to them being an expert, but just in the fact that they do not have a medical degree. They are not a medical doctor and they cannot diagnose or treat conditions. They should not be allowed to testify relating to that.
Okay, I understand. So I'm going to find under Rule 702 that Dr. Rogers is qualified in the fields as a chemist and as in the field of agriculture. I should not do it with chemistry. In long-term exposure to chemicals. I do understand your objection, Ms. Lindquist, and if there's a particular question that comes up, you may certainly re-raise that objection in the particular question. The rest of it goes to weight not admissibility of how the jury considers his testimony. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So tell me more about some of the specific studies that you've done, Dr. Rogers.
Sure, I've done a lot of studies in my years. I started off more recently reviewing different pieces of agricultural studies, weed resistance, and different fertilizers, especially in the area of Drufo, the weed resistance to it and its use as a pesticide. But more recently, and I think the study that I care the most about, I researched into the effect of Drufo on farm workers or agricultural workers over a long period of time.
And let's back up just a little bit. What is Drufo?
Well, it's a binding agent that is used in Lush Fertilizers products. It mostly just keeps the product preserved and lasting over a long period of time.
And just to get some background, what originally piqued your interest in Drufo?
Well, it was a while ago. I think right when it first came on the market, I immediately knew that it didn't have enough studies into its effects. I've been looking over the market for a long period of time. I know when something's adequately studied, and Drufo was not. So I was immediately worried about that. For years after that point, similarly, there were more reports of possible dangers with the product, and I had to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, so talk to me more about the study that you've done on Drufo.
Absolutely. That study was very comprehensive over a period of years. I examined 3 major groups: people with daily exposure to the product, occasional exposure to the product, and a control group with no exposure to Drufo at all. And when I compared those 3 groups, over a long period of time, I monitored them for negative or positive medical conditions that could have a correlation.
Objection, Your Honor. Outside the scope of the witness's testimony, they are speaking to the medical effects of the chemical Drufo on the human body.
Your Honor,
Yet?
thank you, Your
Yeah,
Honor.
you may.
This witness was simply just talking about the study and overall what they found within the study, and that did include the exposure of the chemical long-term on the human body, though it's not crossing over into that medical field.
Anything else, Ms. Lindquist?
No, Your Honor.
Yeah, I don't think he's not giving a medical opinion. He's given results of some studies he did, and I do think it's appropriate, so I can overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you want me to re-ask the question?
I'm happy to continue from where I left off.
Okay, go ahead.
So after studying these three groups for a long period of time, I was looking for different negative or positive medical conditions or other factors that might be correlated heavily with Drufo use, just to look and see if there was a causal relationship with the product and any kind of adverse health effects. And it turned out that in the results of my study, those with daily exposure to Drufo were 10 times more likely than the control. And those with occasional exposure to Drufo were twice as likely as the control to contract cancer, more specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
So what does this tell us about Drufo as a whole?
The evidence when it comes to toxicology and all of my experience in that field shows that it's heavily causal in a relationship with cancer.
Moving on, did you do any research about this case prior to today?
I did. I looked through all the material evidence I could find. I looked through medical records from Dakota Wires and work experience. Really any evidence I could get my hands on, I tried to read through.
So from your knowledge about your study alone, what did you conclude about Drufo and Dakota?
Drufo most definitely has been the cause of Dakota Wire's horrible condition. That study that I conducted shows that heavy relationship with cancer and Drufo use, and Dakota Wires was in that third group, using Drufo every day with very little protection from the product's absorption. That is the cause of the cancer.
Okay, and I'm sorry, can you highlight again why Dakota is in that third group of people in your study?
Absolutely. Let me get a little bit more specific. Now, my third group looked at a bunch of different groups of people who would be using the product Drufo on a daily basis. That's people like farm workers or agricultural workers, landscapers, anyone who from any group who was using that product on a daily basis would fit in there. Because Dakota Wires was using that product on that same daily basis, they fit into the third group.
Thank you. Moving on a little bit, how can a person be exposed to Drufo?
Well, that's really interesting. There's two major routes of exposure with the product, one of which in the aerosolized form of the product can be inhalation. The product will go down the throat into the lungs, and then from the lungs, it'll seep into the bloodstream, at which point it can get all around the body. Another option of exposure is absorption, in which case touching the product without gloves or long sleeves and pants could cause absorption directly through the dermis, the skin, and into that bloodstream once again throughout the rest of the body.
So what would you, Dr. Rogers, recommend for preventing this harmful exposure to Drufo?
Well, gosh, that's a hard question. I'm not sure the data there is conclusive for measures, but absolutely taking the product off the market, stopping people from being exposed to it at all, that would be a solution.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Yet. Ms. Lindquist, cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Hello, Dr. Rogers.
Hello.
Hello. So to start off, you do work as an employee of UC Berkeley, correct?
I do. I currently teach classes there.
Yes. And you work in the agriculture and entomology department?
Well, that's where I teach my classes, yes.
All right. And throughout your professional career, you have made recommendations to companies, regulatory agencies, and have been involved in various different types of litigations, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested in the law. I love people who are litigating to hear my research, just know what effects chemicals could have on.
All right. Thank you. Yes or no, again, will suffice. And you have never actually testified in a trial prior to this trial today, though, correct?
I haven't. I'm really excited to see how today goes.
All right. You would like to testify in the future, though, correct?
Sure. I've found a lot of fulfillment litigating in the past. I'd love to be in more trials.
And the reason you would like to testify in the future, though, is for monetary reasons, though, correct?
I just told you the reason. I'm fascinated by litigation. I want my evidence to be heard. Obviously, I am being paid, but that is nowhere near the point of me being here today.
All right. And this study that you previously mentioned, you've worked on this study for a long time, correct?
Yes, over the course of several years, I have.
And you would know all about this study, correct?
I do. Obviously, there's parts from the day-to-day procedures that I wouldn't remember, but the conclusions, what the data as a whole said, that's ironed into my brain.
And prior to today's trial, you prepared a witness statement, correct?
I did. I just tried to get all the material information into one place for everyone to have access to.
And you know that if anything changes prior to the trial, you could change the information in your witness statement, correct?
I absolutely could have. Getting new information in there, letting people know new study results that I've found, all of those are important things to do.
And you signed the end of your witness statement saying that all information included in it would be true and accurate, yes?
Could I have access to that witness statement and see that signature just to verify that?
Yes, of course. Do you have access to that witness statement at the moment?
Oh, I was told I wouldn't be allowed to have my statement on me during the trial.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to pull up their witness statement?
Witness may look at the last page of his statement to determine if that's his signature, which is what I understand his request is.
Yes. Just let me know when you're able to view that.
Sure. Yes, that is my signature there at the bottom of that statement.
All right, sounds
Please
good.
Please close your statement. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the signature at the end is correct. And if I could direct Your Honor, could I have permission for the witness to pull up the statement one more time to direct their attention to a certain line?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I could have you direct your attention to line, I apologize, I'm having some technical difficulties. Just one moment.
Let's stop the clock. Tell me when you find your technical's over. I know it's a lot easier to go hand that affidavit to somebody and show them the line, but.
All right, I apologize for that, Your Honor. I am ready to go.
Time starts.
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, if I may object, improper impeachment.
Okay. Response, Ms.
Honor.
Lindquist? Oh, you want to?
I'm
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
sorry. If I could explain. Thank you, Your
Sure.
Honor. Opposing counsel never asked my witness the same question twice, therefore never locking in that answer that my witness gave, therefore making it an improper impeachment.
Your Honor, if I may
Ms.
respond.
Williams?
I am
Sure.
not finished with the process of impeachment yet, so I have not had the chance to ask the witness that question.
Yeah, I'm not even sure at this point it's going to impeachment. As yet, I understand your objection, but I don't think we've gotten quite that far. So you may need to re-raise this objection. But right now, I think it's premature. So I'll overrule it at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you,
Proceed,
Your
Ms.
Honor.
Lindquist.
So if I may ask one more time, Dr. Rogers, could you please state the results of your study and how likely it is for people to develop cancer in regards to your study?
Yes, absolutely. Those with prolonged daily exposure to the product were 10 times more likely than the control group to be diagnosed with cancer. And those with occasional exposure were twice as likely as the control group to be diagnosed with cancer.
All right. If I could direct your attention to lines 48 and 49, or I'm sorry, 47 and 48 in your witness statement, if that's okay with Your Honor.
Certainly.
Thank you. Could you direct your attention to those lines?
I have them pulled up now.
And it states that, I'm sorry, could you please read lines 47 and 48 from your witness statement?
Absolutely. Those with prolonged exposure were 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as those without exposure. and 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with cancer as those with occasional exposure.
However, you previously stated that instead of it being 5 times more likely, it was twice as likely, correct?
There's actually no discrepancy here. If those with daily exposure are 5 times more likely than those with occasional exposure and 10 times more likely than the control group, those with occasional exposure are twice as likely as the control group to develop cancer. It's just phrased differently in my affidavit.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. I'm going to continue now. So your
Please close
study,
your-
I'm sorry.
I just wanted him to close his affidavit.
Yes.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Your Honor.
May I proceed?
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. So after completion of your study, you drew the conclusion, as we stated, that there were higher incidences of diseases, including cancer and serious health problems in those with high exposure.
Yes, those were my conclusions from all the data that I had access to.
But these people who got sick, Drufo could not have been the only chemical they were exposed to.
I mean, here's the thing. The group with daily exposure was being exposed to environmental factors, sure. But the thing is, that group was a variety of different people. They came from all walks of life, all working experiences, all different environments, which already accounts for the different environmental exposures by making sure that every
All right, thank you. Again, a yes or no answer to these questions will suffice. Thank you so much. You studied farmers and gardeners, people like that in your research.
Oh, yes, and my daily group, yes.
But these laborers and gardeners, they must have had more than one chemical that they use. Drufo is not the only chemical that would have been provided to them to use.
I'm happy to explain it again. I accounted for that in my research. I used a variety of different groups: farm laborers, flower workers, landscapers. Everyone from all different walks of life was included in my research.
Yes, thank you. But your study doesn't reflect incidences of people getting sick after being exposed to Drufo. It reflects people getting sick after being exposed to pesticides and chemicals generally, not just Drufo.
Are you asking a question?
Yes, your study doesn't reflect incidences of people getting sick after being exposed to just Drufo, correct?
No, that would not be correct.
So you also stated the results of using protective gear to prevent exposure was inconclusive?
Yeah, it was inconclusive. It's a lot more complicated of a thing to study whether or not you can prevent exposure than it is just to look at the correlation and find a causal relationship that comes between exposure to a certain thing and, of course, different health conditions. So while it's easy to look at just a graph of incidences of cancer and amount of time spent with Drufo, it's a lot harder to look at amount of Drufo in the bloodstream or amount of Drufo on the skin versus a variety of different groups using different things like masks, gloves, long pants. You know, it's a much more complicated of an issue to study.
Okay, thank you. But just to reiterate, your study, your professional pride and joy, the end results of this study were inconclusive.
Which study are you talking about here?
Your study relating to preventing exposure to Drufo.
Well, it had a wide variety of conclusive results, but yes, we're still following up on more information in that study. However, the conclusive results that we've had are conclusive. Those will not change.
But there are results that are inconclusive, correct?
I mean, that's part of why I'd love to testify more on the subject. It will probably be many years.
Again, a yes or no answer. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Yet, do you have any redirect?
No need for a redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness may be excused, and I'll give the scoring panelists time to make their scores. Looks like everybody's ready, are we? Okay, plaintiff may present their second witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff calls Carson Durst to the stand. And I think she may need to change her name, so if we could just have a moment to let her do that.
We could do that. And would you give me your name, counsel?
Raven Chamberlain.
Thank you. I should remember that, but I'm not good at that. And do we have the cross-examining attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. So we have Ms. Miller, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Your Honor.
All right. I think we're ready to go. You may proceed.
And before I begin, I just want to make sure timekeepers are ready. Perfect. Am I good to proceed?
One ready? Hold on a second. I got one ready. Yep, we're ready. Go.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Carson Durst, and Durst is spelled D-U-R-S-T.
Are you currently employed, Ms. Durst?
I am, yes.
Where do you work?
I work for Terra's Greenery.
What's your current position at Terra's?
At Terra's, I'm a lead product developer.
About how long have you worked there?
Let's see, I was brought on to the team in 2007, so about 15 years now.
Did you work anywhere prior to working at Terra's?
I did, yes. In fact, directly prior to working for Terra's, I worked for Lush Fertilizer.
What was your position at Lush?
At Lush, I was first brought on as an intern and then quickly rose through the ranks and was brought on to a full-time position on the research and development team.
About how long did you work at Lush?
Let's see, I was brought on as an intern in June 2003 and left in late 2006, so about three and a half years.
Did you work on any specific products while you were at Lush?
I did, yes. In fact, while I was working at Lush, they were in the process of developing their ingredient Drufo. And so I worked extensively on the research and the creation of Drufo.
Were there any downfalls of Drufo?
Absolutely, yeah. And there still are. Drufo was found to be carcinogenic. And
Objection, Your Honor, speculation. There is no proof that Drufo has been found to be carcinogenic. This witness is speculating.
May I respond?
Ms. Chamberlain?
Your Honor, this is not speculation, as my witness was one of the developers on the team working on Drufo, so she would have the knowledge.
Response, Mr. Sampera?
It's still never been proven that Drufo is carcinogenic. That is, in fact, one of the topics at debate here this afternoon is whether or not it's carcinogenic. So there is no evidence that it is carcinogenic, so she cannot say that it is.
I think in the present state of the evidence, the proper foundation as to how she knows this or what the basis of that is hasn't been laid. So on that basis, I'm going to sustain the objection.
Am I good to continue?
You may proceed. Sorry.
You're okay. I'll just go ahead and lay some more foundation. While you were on the team working for Drufo, would you know if there were any downfalls of Drufo?
absolutely, yes. I mean, that was my job, so of course.
Were there any downfalls of Drufo?
Absolutely, yeah. There were many studies that I found and other members of my team found pointing to a really strong possibility that Drufo may be carcinogenic. And so since that still exists and that risk still exists as potential carcinogens within Drufo, that's a major risk and a major downfall.
Did you ever receive any communications about this?
Absolutely. Yes, there was extensive communication throughout our team, including email chains, face-to-face communication, all of that.
Now, if I could have my co-counsel screen share Exhibit 4, what has been previously marked as Exhibit 4.
Certainly.
And it should just be one moment, Your Honor. And are you able to see that, Ms. Durst?
I am, yes, thank you.
And if I could have my co-counsel scroll all the way down so you can see the full thing. Do you recognize this?
I do, yes.
What is it?
It's an email that I received from my manager at the time when I was working at Lush, Jerry Langley, regarding a study that Lush had done on Truffaut and some findings of that study.
Does it seem to be a clear and accurate copy?
Could you have your co-counsel scroll down just one more time so I can verify that? Yes, it appears so.
Your Honor, I now move to admit what has been previously marked as Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Mr. Sempera, is there any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, this email is hearsay.
May I respond?
Ms. Chamberlain? Yes.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay as it qualifies under Rule 801 subsection D, subsection 2, subsection D, that Gary Langley was an employer of Lush Fertilizer, therefore considers it the opposing party.
Mr. Sempera?
No, I stand by what I previously objected.
Look, Exhibit 4. I can look at my copy. Hold on a second. Mr. Chairman, you said 801 D2.
801 subsection D, subsection 2, subsection D.
Can you tell me, Ms. Chamberlain, how this is an opposing party statement? This appears to be. Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I had the wrong side of the case. Never mind, that's what I was struggling with. Okay, that is an exception. I've just forgot what side of the case I was on. Exhibit 4 will be admitted.
Now, if I could have my co-counsel scroll down just a little bit to the second paragraph. Ms. Durst, could you read the first sentence of the second paragraph for me?
Absolutely. It says, following our lab's June Truffaut study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period early in the year.
Now, what does this sentence mean to you?
Essentially, when I read this statement, when I first received it, I took it as a response from Jerry and the other higher ups at Lush Fertilizer as a response to a study that we conducted on some Truffaut samples that had been made earlier in the year. This email was a response saying that there were potential carcinogenic qualities identified within that in-house sample through an in-house study. And thus it was just a response to that study. And in some ways,
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative. This witness is just narrating. If the co-counsel could split this up into further questions to further clarify, I would appreciate that. But as of now, this witness is just narrating.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Your Honor, as my question was, what does this sentence mean to you? My witness is still very in the bounds of my question, and it is not narrative.
Anything else, Mr. Sempera?
I stand by what I originally objected to.
Yeah, I think she's answered the question, and it's a long answer, but if she has answered the question, I'm overall.
And did you have anything else to say, Ms. Durst?
I did, just a little bit. This was, as I was stating, just a follow-up to the study that we had conducted. And it was just the first red flag around those potential carcinogenic qualities that I at least had ever been made aware of.
Now, if my co-counsel could scroll up to the top of this exhibit, Do you happen to see any of your superiors in the to portion of the email?
I do, yes. In fact, I see multiple of them, but most notably Blake Doncourt, who was and still is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer.
Now, my co-counsel can stop screen sharing now. Now we're gonna move on a little bit to Drufo. Could Lush do anything to get rid of the possible carcinogens?
Absolutely.
Objection, Your Honor. This question is outside of this witness's personal knowledge, and yeah.
Response, Ms. Chamberlain?
Your Honor, as my witness was a part of the team that worked on Drufo, they would have extensive knowledge on this product.
What was your question again? Remind me.
It was, could Lush have done anything to get rid of the possible carcinogens in Drufo?
Your Honor, if I may respond.
Yes, you may. Sorry, I didn't give you the opportunity. Thank you.
This question calls for the witness's opinion, and this witness is not an expert and therefore cannot give an opinion on this subject.
So are you saying this calls for an expert opinion under 702, Mr. Sampera?
Yes, I'm saying this is under Rule 701. This is an improper lay opinion from a layperson.
Your Honor, may I respond to the new objection?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your Honor, this does not call for an expert opinion, as Ms. Durst was working on the product Drufo, and this is just giving her the opportunity to tell me if there was anything that they found they could do.
Last heard, Mr. Sampera.
This still requires an opinion because it is asking if there's anything they could have done, and this is not something that Durst would have known because they were only a product quality supervisor, I believe, and they were not in charge of the baking process.
Okay, here's the problem I'm having. It's sort of like the last objection. I'm not quite sure the foundation of Ms. Durst's knowledge on this, so I can't judge whether it's a lay or expert opinion. So I'm going to sustain the objection on right now lack of foundation, because under lay opinion, it's got to have certain things. Under expert, it's a different issue. So go ahead.
I'll just move on a little bit, Ms. Durst. Did you know Blake Doncourt?
I did, yes, very well.
What was your relationship with them like?
Early on
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. This has no relevance to the topic at hand, which is discussion whether or not Lush Fertilizer was negligent.
Ms. Chamberlain.
Your Honor, under 401, relevance has the tendency to make a fact more or less probable. And this question is just connecting Blake and Carson to show that there was a relationship between them at all. And since Blake is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, which is the defense in today's case, it is extremely relevant to today's case.
So I appreciate what you said, but why is their relationship important to the product's liability issue, which is what we're here for?
To show the possible bias that Blake or Carson may have.
Okay, Mr. Sampera.
As you cited the rule for relevance, it says fact, and there is no fact that you are trying to prove here because there is no evidence of what you are saying and speculating. Therefore, it is not relevant.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection. I do believe it goes to bias or credibility of the perhaps Mr. Doncourt and or Ms. Durst. So I'm going to allow the question.
And did you need me to re-ask the question, Ms. Durst?
Yes, that would be very much appreciated, Ms. Chamberlain.
What was your relationship with Blake Doncourt like?
You know, early on in my life, it was a really strong relationship. Blake was the parent of one of my best childhood friends, Charlie. We grew up together playing soccer, and so Blake and I got to know each other at the lake house and driving back and forth between soccer practices with Charlie. So it's a really strong relationship. This relationship helped me get a job at Lush Fertilizer, along with the credentials that I had at the time. That's how I scored that internship. And so it was pretty strong all through then, but there were some concerns and some conflicts that came up during my time at Lush. And because of those, and because of like lack of responsiveness to those concerns when I brought them to them, our relationship is now a little bit estranged and just really isn't what it used to be.
And Ms. Durst, finally, why did you leave Lush?
Speaking of those concerns and conflicts that I had just previously mentioned, I really didn't feel like my voice was being heard when I was.
Objection, Your Honor. I would just like the record to show that Ms. Durst was fired from Lush Fertilizer and did not leave Lush Fertilizer.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Your Honor, I do believe that my witness was getting to that. Leaving was more of a vague, letting her respond in her own way.
Anything else, Mr. Sempera?
I would just prefer if my opposing counsel would rephrase it as to, instead of leaving, they would say fired, because that is what actually happened.
Mr. Sempera, I think you could explore that across examination. I'm going to let them present the case the way they want to present it. Overruled.
Mr. Do you need me to re-ask it, or can you just continue?
Could you re-ask?
Why did you ultimately leave Lush?
I ultimately left Lush because, as I previously noted, there were some conflicts that came up during my time at Lush, specifically surrounding that email that we had just previously discussed. I brought up continuously some concerns I had around Durufo and its potential carcinogenic qualities, and I just didn't feel like I was being listened to. My performance reviews were going down, and it just felt like a really hostile workplace, and so I decided to leave and go to Terra's Greenery. But before I had the chance to quit, I think Lush saw me as such a negative employee for bringing up these carcinogenic concerns.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation. Your Honor, that was speculation. The witness testified that Lush fired them because they were such a negative employee, but they have no idea, they have no way of understanding or knowing what Lush Fertilizer was thinking when they fired Ms. Durst.
Okay. Response, Ms. Chamberlain.
Your Honor, as my witness was close with the CEO at the time, and it's her own personal feeling, I do not believe that this is speculation.
Anything else, Mr. Sempera?
Yeah, the witness said that they decided to fire me because I was such a negative employee. That is speculation. She said the reason that they fired her, and that is not proven. It is purely speculation. Regardless of what this witness feels, it is still speculation.
In this case, I'm going to find under Rule 701 that based on the past relationship between Ms. Durst and Mr. Court, the owner, I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I just dropped it from my brain. That I think she can't have that opinion, and that's a lay opinion that she can give. You can cross-examine on. Overruled.
Mr. Can you continue?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just repeat that last little part of what I said. Yeah, I was fired because I was looked so down upon because of the concerns that I was raising, and the fact that it just seemed that Lush didn't really want to listen to me. And so ultimately I was fired in December of 2006.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. Mr. Sempera, please engage in cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you could give me one moment.
Sure.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Oh, shoot. Sorry, Your Honor. Please pause the clock.
It's okay. Don't worry about this. Awkwardness of Zoom.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My Wi-Fi is moving slowly today, Your Honor. All right, I am ready.
You may proceed.
Ms. Durst, did you know the Dawn Courts?
Yeah, as I previously explained to Ms. Chamberlain, I knew Blake and Charlie specifically quite well.
Okay. And you used to play soccer with Blake Dawncourt's son, Charlie, yeah?
I did. Yeah, we were on the same traveling team. Yeah, so we spent a lot of time together doing that.
Sounds like fun. And so you'd like go over to the John Courts on Sundays. You'd have dinner with them. You guys were really connected.
Yeah, I did spend a lot of time with them. They were almost like a second family to me for that earlier part of my life. So yeah.
All right, yeah. Um, and so you've known the Don Courts for like 20 years, right?
Yeah, I don't really keep in communication with them anymore just because of recent events. But I did
I
know them
understand.
for quite some time.
I understand that, yeah. And Blake Doncourt is the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, right?
Yes, yeah, as we previously established, that is correct.
Thank you. And Blake Doncourt hired you directly out of college.
Yeah, it wasn't like Doncort specifically, but the team at Lush Fertilizer, yeah.
Okay. And you had no previous work experience in fertilizer.
I didn't. I had my degree in chemical engineering from ASU, go Sun Devils. And so I had some level of knowledge, but no hands-on experience yet. That's why they brought me on as an intern.
Okay. And you were chosen over more qualified candidates for your position.
Yeah, I think in combination with my expertise in the area because of my chemical engineering degree, as well as that relationship that I held with Charlie, I think the mix of those two allowed me to get the job potentially over more qualified applicants. Yeah, not exactly sure on that one though.
Okay, right. So your relationship with Don Court's son and your expertise, that makes sense. Just going to ask a couple questions. You don't have a PhD.
No, not
Okay.
yet. I mean, maybe someday, but not at this point, no.
All right, yeah. You don't even have a master's degree though.
No, I never really found the need to get one because as I've hopped from job to job over time, there really hasn't been time. I've just been working on getting that field experience. So no master's degree yet.
Okay. So you only have a bachelor's degree, which is you get after completing 4 years of college.
Yes, exactly. Specifically
Okay.
within the field of chemical engineering. You got it.
All right, perfect. Yeah. And so you were tasked to research a compound in Drufo?
Yes,
correct?
I was as an intern.
All right, perfect. And your findings of that specific compound being carcinogenic, they were never proven, right?
Yeah, the study I found was conducted by a lab in England, and the conclusion that they came to was that Drufo could be potentially carcinogenic, which I saw as a major red flag at the time.
Okay. But it was never proven that it was carcinogenic.
Not 100%. The possibility of carcinogenic qualities were identified, but as far as I know, there was never a follow-up study done by the lab in England.
Okay. I'm just going to move on to another line of questioning. You said you received annual performance reviews?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. And those reviews were abysmal.
I guess you could put it that way. Yeah, sure. I mean,
all right. Yeah, okay, thank you so much. And so I'm seeing complaints were filed by your superiors and coworkers regarding your job performance while at Lush Fertilizer?
absolutely. Yeah, I think they were a little jealous of the fact that I had that strong relationship with Blake. And then eventually, once those concerns about the potential carcinogenic qualities in Drufo came up,
Okay, thank you.
they
That's
weren't really
all.
hearing it.
I only need a yes or no.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry. I
just
couldn't quite hear the last part of what you said. Could you repeat that
Sorry.
for me?
If you could just answer that in a yes or no, that would be amazing.
It wasn't really as simple as a yes or no. I mean, I can explain again if you'd like.
I'm sorry. The question I asked was just simply complaints were filed by your superiors and coworkers about your job performance. That is a yes or no question. There is really very little interpretation on that question. If you could please answer in a yes or no.
It's a yes, but I just think it would.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. And so you were fired from Lush Fertilizer in December of 2000 and what year was it?
It was 2006.
Okay, and you were fired.
I was, yes.
Okay, all right. And so when you were fired, you where are you currently working then?
As I explained to Ms. Chamberlain, I'm currently working as a lead product developer at Terrace Greenery.
Ah, okay. And Terrace Greenery is one of Lush Fertilizer's biggest competitors, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could put it that way for sure. That's why I went to work for them, because I wanted to work for a company of the same caliber as Lush.
Okay. And so I would just like to clarify, you quit and you decided to take the job for Terrace Greenery because you thought that it would irritate Blake Doncourt?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I was pretty mad that my concerns weren't being listened to back in
Okay.
2006. So yeah, I think to an extent I did want to irritate Blake.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Durst. Your Honor, the defense has no further questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Semper. Is there any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, then the witness is excused and we will take a break to score. Okay, looks like we're all ready. Plaintiff has another witness they wish to call.
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Dakota Weirs to the stand.
Okay, and Kels, could you give me your name?
Sage Madden.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Sage Madden.
Madding?
Madden, Madden.
Thank you. You may proceed, Ms. Madden.
Ms. Weirs, will you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
My first is Dakota and my last is Weirs.
Alrighty, Ms. Weirs. How are you feeling today?
Not too well, actually.
And why are you feeling that way?
I was recently diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer that affects your lymph nodes.
And is that diagnosis difficult for you?
It's radically changed my life, and it's been very hard for me and everyone around me.
How has it changed your life?
I used to be a strong part of my community and of my school, and I had lots of hobbies, but unfortunately, due to my diagnosis and the effects it has on me, I'm no longer able to do those things.
And is there a cure or treatments for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
No, my doctors told me that there is no cure and they don't know what's going to happen.
Objection, hearsay.
Response, Ms. Madden?
Yes, Your Honor. This witness is simply explaining what doctors have said to her about her medical information.
And why isn't the statement that he made, the doctor said this, why isn't that hearsay?
Because of the effect on the listener.
So it's not for the truth of the matter is heard, but the effect on the listener?
Sorry, Your Honor, will you repeat that, please?
Yeah, it's not for the truth of the matter asserted, but rather the effect on the listener, Ms. Weirs. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Vaughn?
I still think it's hearsay. I don't think it is for the truth of the matter. Or no, it is for the truth of the matter.
Um, the way it was phrased as the doctor said this, but I think people can testify about their own medical condition. I think it's proper testimony. I think just the way it was phrased didn't come quite that way. So the jury should consider that Ms. Weirs believes she has Hodgkin's non-lymphotic Hodgkin. I can't say it. I'm sorry, lost it. That she has that disease. Too late in the afternoon on a Saturday. I apologize. That's her belief, and not what a doctor said. They can take it for that, not for the statement of a doctor that it's true. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just going to ask you that again. Are there any cures or treatments for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
No, my doctors have told me that there is no cure and they don't know what's going to happen to me in the future.
And is knowing that difficult?
It is. It sent me into a depressive circle and it's really hard to continue.
And what does your future look like now with this diagnosis?
We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, and it's honestly really scary.
And before your diagnosis, what were your plans for the future?
I had gotten a scholarship to a prestigious musical school, Juilliard in New York City, and I was extremely excited to go, but then I was diagnosed and I had to turn it down.
And was going to school important to you?
It was. My
Objection, relevance.
Ms. Madden, how is this relevant?
Your Honor, under Rule 401, a tendency to make a fact more or less true than it would be. This is extremely important to the case to understand how non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has affected Ms. Weirs' life. And along with that, it helps establish foundation for the witness.
Yeah, I'm going to find that the impact of their life, one of the issues in this case is damages, so the impact of their life is relevant, and I'm overall the objection.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to re-ask that question. Was school important to you?
It was. I was very excited to go, and it's like I had mentioned before, it's a very prestigious school. And although I had gotten other scholarships to other places, that was the place I wanted to go to.
And why were you going to this school?
I ended up getting the scholarship because I have great skills in piano playing, and which is the other reason why I have so many other scholarships. And I was really good at playing piano, so I was able to go to the school of my choice to be able to pursue that dream.
And was the piano important to you?
It was. It really reminded me of my grandfather, my late grandfather.
Objection, asked and answered. This question has already been asked. She's already asked if the piano, and the objection has the witness has already answered that the piano was important to her.
Ms. Madden.
Your Honor, I have not asked this question yet. I have asked if school was important to the witness, and she explained that she was going to school for the piano. I simply asked why the piano was important to her, and now she's giving that testimony.
Mr. Vaughn.
In the previous question about school being important, the witness explained that piano was important.
I understand your objection, and I understand why you made it, but I believe this is a different question, and I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, why was the piano important to you?
Piano was important to me because it mainly reminded me of my late grandfather, who I was very close to.
And moving on a little bit, what other kind of things did you do before your diagnosis?
In school, I was a part of the NHS, the National Honor Society. I did everything I could to be able to stand out from my peers, and I joined many clubs to be able to do that. And for working in the community, I helped with the homeless shelter near my house, And I would help by serving food, by washing dishes, by just helping the
Objection, narrative. This answer has gone on way too long and the question was way too broad.
So, Mr. Vaughn, is your objection overbroad question or narrative response?
Narrative response. But the question calls for a narrative answer.
Ms. Madden,
Your Honor, the witness's answer was still within the scope of the question. She continued to explain the things that she would do before her diagnosis, and while explaining those, that did call for a narrative answer.
I don't think the question or the answer at this point are narrative, so I'm going to overrule the objection.
Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, what things would you do out before your diagnosis around the community?
Other than school activities, I would help out in my community by just helping out the less fortunate people of my community. And yeah.
And you talked about work. Where have you worked, Ms. Weirs?
I worked at Haven Landscaping since I was 14.
And what kind of things would you do there?
I mostly spread fertilizer and grass seeds around. I was too young to work with the machinery.
And what kind of products did you use while you were working at Haven Landscaping?
It was mainly lush fertilizer.
And those products, were you being safe while you used them?
I thought I was being safe, but now I don't believe so. I mean, I didn't realize that when I was younger, I didn't realize there was anything dangerous about the products I was using. But now that we're here today, there obviously was.
If I could have co-counsel please screen share Exhibit 1.
You may.
Ready, Ms. Weirs, are you able to see this exhibit?
Yes, I am.
Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do. It looks like one of the labels from the lush fertilizer items that I used while working at Haven Landscaping.
Does it appear to be a clean and accurate copy?
Yes, it does.
Alrighty, and as you've explained, this is a bottle of lush fertilizer. Do you see any warnings or hazards on this?
I do not see any warnings.
Alrighty. Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No, there is not.
Exhibit 1 will be admitted.
Ms. Weirs, will you please read the small paragraph under user safety recommendations?
The entire paragraph?
Yes, just that top part.
Okay. As with any spray fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers exposed skin. Use of respirator or N95 mask is recommended. Follow manufacturer's instructions for cleaning/maintaining personal protective equipment.
And did you follow those recommendations while using the product?
No, I did not. And the only reason not was because I was a 14-year-old following the influence of the older people at my work, as well as I did not see any reason to wear the protective clothing, for there is not a warning for what this product can do to you.
Do you see the if in eyes portion?
Yes, I do.
And do you see the first aid portion?
Yes.
Do you consider those warnings?
No, I've seen those I've seen those cautions and first aids on things like acetone, or you don't pour that in your eyes. And it just seemed like something that would be on anything, not something that could be truly dangerous to someone's life.
Were there any warnings or inclinations on this product that could have given you worry when using it?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Vaughn, cross-examination.
Yes. Ms. Weirs, when you worked as a landscaping technician, you used fertilizer, correct?
Correct.
Please, now would you direct your attention to Exhibit 1? Do you have it in front of you?
I do not.
Well, I was under the impression that all witnesses would have the in front
Time
of
out,
them at
time
the
out,
time.
Mr. Vaughn, time out. I understand what the question is, so we're gonna go off clock for a minute.
Okay.
Ms. Weirs, do you have the capability of pulling up a copy of that exhibit in front of you?
I can try. I don't think I do.
Could I ask counsel to republish?
Yeah, no, I do not. Sorry.
Your Honor.
Could I ask counsel? Hold on. Could I ask counsel to republish exhibit 1 or reshare screen exhibit 1 so it can be used? Hey, Mr. Vaughn, you may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Weirs, can you see exhibit 1 right now?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. In exhibit 1, under user safety recommendations, there's a recommendation that states how clothing that covers exposed skin must be used, correct?
It does recommend having clothing that covers exposed skin.
But you didn't wear a long sleeve shirt when you worked with the fertilizer, right?
That's correct. I didn't see any real reason.
A yes or no will suffice. And when you worked, you also didn't wear long pants.
Correct. And as previously stated, I didn't.
A yes or no will suffice. Thank you. And when you used the fertilizer, you also didn't wear gloves.
Yes, that has already been stated.
Perfect. And in exhibit 1, under the user safety recommendations, doesn't it also recommend that the use of a respirator or an N95 face mask?
It does recommend it, but as I had been trying to say before, I hadn't worn them because I hadn't seen a real reason to actually wear them, for there was not an actual warning on the label.
Okay. But when you used the fertilizer, you didn't wear an N95 mask, did you?
No, I had already said that.
And you also didn't wear a respirator.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes.
Asked and answered. This witness has already answered this question as previously asked by opposing counsel.
Vaughn?
I have not asked this question yet. Asked and answered refers to asking a question, the same attorney asking the question more than once.
I think you asked about a face covering of N5, N95, and then you asked about a respirator. Those are not the same questions. Overruled.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. So despite the user safety recommendations, you didn't follow any of them, correct?
Because I didn't follow them because there were.
Thank you. A yes or no will suffice. And in your time working at Haven Landscaping, you also used other chemical products besides Drufo, correct?
I mostly did use Lush.
But okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness will be excused and we'll do scoring of the witness. Everyone ready? Does the plaintiff have any more witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, plaintiff rests. Defense, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Blake Doncourt to the stand.
Mr. Doncourt. Okay, I think we have, could I have remind me, cross-seat attorney, your name, please.
Raven Chamberlain.
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. Okay, you may proceed.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Certainly. My name is Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
What is your profession, Mr. Doncourt?
I am the CEO of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated.
How long have you worked as a CEO for Lush Fertilizer?
Since 2000, I've built the company up from pretty much nothing.
Can you tell me what Lush's primary product is?
Well, our primary product is Lush Fertilizer. We sell to all kinds of clients who want green grass, both indoors and outdoors.
So who do you sell to specifically?
Well, we sell to companies who spread the fertilizer, but these clients could include government agencies, businesses, or just individuals.
Thank you. And before producing a product, what safety practices are conducted?
Well, what we do is basically assess all sorts of facets of the product, what goes into it, what kind of effect it has on the environment and people. All of this is done through a research team.
Tell me more about this research team. Specifically, what do they do?
Really, they take the chemical properties using their expert qualifications and they test it. They do research. They see, what are the environmental impacts? What are the human impacts? And then basically create an assessment and say, well, it's okay to be released now.
So what is your motive to release a safe product?
Well, not only am I an environmentalist, I'm also a businessman. People often don't understand that an unhealthy product creates an unhealthy business. So I have every motive, both financially and ethically, to release a really good and safe product.
So would you release an unsafe product?
No, it just would not be in my financial interest, nor are my ethical ones.
Now, on to another line of questioning. What is Drufo?
Well, based on the research and the ingredients that go into this product, Drufo is just one of our bonding agents in our fertilizer.
Now, what did the research on Drufo find?
The research found really it was safe for production, no carcinogenic properties, good for the environment, really a top of the line product.
So does this mean that Drufo could be linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Based on my research and my company, it cannot be.
So what does that mean for the way that you released your product?
Seeing as we go through the assessment of risks and stuff like that, we decided that it's a very low risk product. There is no risk of it causing cancer, therefore it went on to the production.
Was there a warning about Drufo being carcinogenic on your product?
As there was no risk for being carcinogenic, there was no need for a warning.
Okay, thank you. Did you put any warning on your product?
Well, as a fertilizer company, we always put warnings on products just as a precaution. We put a user safety recommendations, which advise skin coverings, face masks, and other kind of health practices, all very routine and precautionary.
Now, based on your company's research and role as president of the company, do you believe that Lush Fertilizer was involved in Miss Weir's illness?
Really, it's so unfortunate about this illness. It's awful. It's also unfortunate that Lush is categorized as the cause, when really it's the motive to release a safe product is so strong. It's bad for business to release an unhealthy, unsafe product. So no, Lush Fertilizer is not at all related to Dakota's illness.
Now, on to another line. Do you know Mr. Durst?
I do know Mr. Durst.
How do you know Mr. Durst?
Well, Mr. Durst was a longtime friend of ours, and he also worked at our company, starting from an intern to moving up to more serious positions.
Perfect. Please direct your attention to Exhibit 4. Have you ever seen that email before?
Only until Courtroom today. I did not see it at the time it says it was listed as.
Thank you, Mr. Doncourt. That will be all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Chamberlain, cross.
Yes. And just to make sure timekeepers are ready. Perfect. And do you want me to wait for the second timekeeper as well?
There we go. You got it. Thank you for checking.
Mr. Doncourt, you built Lush from the ground up.
Yeah, proudly. Very successful company. I put a lot of effort into it ever since 2000, really, day and night.
But you couldn't have done all of this alone.
Well, no, I mean, a company is it takes a team.
You had to have a little bit of help from seed investors.
Well, yeah, we need clients. We need all kinds of help, of course.
Now we're going to come back to those investors in a little bit. You would consider yourself as well as your company environmentalists?
Yes. Really, it's not just a consideration. We've been accoladed for our efforts in environmental practices, from awards to just simple recognition. We pride ourselves in that, really.
You even donate a small amount of your profits to charities?
10% of our annual profits, correct.
Now, moving on to your fertilizer. On the packaging of your fertilizer, it says that face masks are recommended.
Yeah, so to user safety recommendations. Really, it's a precautionary measure for all of our products. It's to advise users to be safe, not avoid skin contact, just in case for anything. It's just precautionary.
And that's recommended, not required, Mr. Doncourt?
These are safety recommendations. And I think the word required versus recommendations, when something is recommended by a professional company in fertilizer, it should be taken seriously, for sure.
Mr. Doncourt, if you could answer my question, that is recommended, not required, correct?
Oh, absolutely recommended strongly.
Now, moving on to your relationship with Carson Durst. You know Carson Durst.
Yes, as I previously stated, longtime friend, moved up to be an employee of ours, then later was fired.
You've known them for almost their whole life.
I've known Carson Durst for a long time.
Really,
it's a family friend. It was.
They were almost like a second kid to you?
I just have a lot of respect, yes.
Now, after college, you gave them a job.
Yeah, Carson Durst was hired on our team. We had connections. Yeah, of course.
They acted ungrateful for the many opportunities you'd given them?
Look, my opinions about Carson Durst I'll often relate to hindsight. At the time, I was just frustrated with some of the ways he acted.
Now, moving on to your product, Drufo. You made the choice to not bake Drufo.
No, so I'd mentioned earlier about the research team. We put a lot of research and found no carcinogenic properties. It was not worth the expense of baking it to release something when we already had the approval of our research team.
Ultimately, you were one of the people that didn't think it was worth it, though, correct?
Well, I made the final decision. It just wasn't worth it. Our research team, though, was the one who concluded its non-carcinogenic properties.
You needed some of this money for baking Drufo for other reasons.
Well, I think it saved money, but in terms of other reasons, it's just a saving of money. I don't know if I necessarily needed it for all kinds of things. I was going through a divorce. Yes, money is needed, but.
You even needed some of this money to pay your ex-spouse that you just mentioned?
Yeah, as I just mentioned, we went through a divorce. Unfortunately, that involved payments on her behalf. But, that's just a part of the system.
But baking Drufo would have gotten rid of any risk at all.
Well, yeah, if there was a risk, it would have gotten rid of it. But the idea behind it is there was no risk.
It would have gotten rid of even the smallest risk, correct?
Well, emphasis on the word even the smallest.
Objection, asked and answered. She just asked that exact same question and the witness answered.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Hey,
Your Honor, my previous question was baking it would have gotten rid of any risks at all. And then my second question was even the smallest risks. So those are two very different questions and not at all asked and answered.
I agree, overruled.
Now I'll go ahead and ask my question again.
No problem.
It would get rid of even the smallest risks, correct?
Absolutely, even the smallest risk, but emphasis on the word even the smallest risk. Our research team had concrete conclusions. I trusted it. I hired them for a reason.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. Is there any redirect?
No, there's not.
Hey, Mr. Doncourt, you are released from your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, looks like everyone's ready. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Okay. And again, I apologize for because I'm terrible with names. Would you please, cross-state attorney, tell me your name again?
Sage Madden.
Thanks. I should remember that. I had trouble the first time. You may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, Mr. Weirs. To start off, could you please spell your name and state your last name for the record?
My name is Skylar Weirs, Weirs.
Thank you. First, could you explain your current occupation?
Currently, I'm an investigative journalist, specifically writing about the agritech industry, which includes topics such as fertilizers and pesticides, including DRUFO.
And who do you write for?
I write for the Rationalist magazine, which is a science advocacy and education publication.
All right. And I'm sorry, let me rephrase. What do you do at this publication?
I write articles relating to a number of different agritech topics, pesticides, fertilizers, GMO, and really other topics as well.
All right. How long would you say you spend researching for these articles?
I spend at least a year researching for my articles.
All right. And what kinds of research do you do?
I review publications from different agritech companies, and then I go track down the sources that are referenced within those publications and review that information as well. Additionally, I review different information that is maintained by the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture in order to gain a vast wealth of knowledge for the topics that I write about.
All right. And what degrees do you have?
I don't have any degrees, but I have a vast wealth of knowledge, and I know a ton of information about the different topics that I research, including agritech.
Your Honor, the defense requests that Skylar Weirs be tendered as an expert witness in the chemical DRUFO and in modern agritech. According to the pretrial ruling, as a motion to preclude expert testimony, an expert is not required to hold a specific degree or training as determined by Rule 702. However, an expert witness must hold specialized knowledge and provide proof of that knowledge. This has been established for Skylar Weirs, and as such, they should be tendered as an expert.
Okay, off clock for a second. Would you give me those categories again?
In what they're going to be qualified as an expert in?
Yeah.
DRUFO and modern agritech.
Okay. Ben.
Your Honor, may we do a brief voir dire?
May. Proceed.
Mr. Weirs, you have no formal education, correct?
No, but I know I have done a ton of research relating to agritech and DRUFO.
And that series you mentioned, it includes multiple different realms of agritech?
Yes.
And an article included in that series was on DRUFO?
Yes.
And you spent just under a year researching DRUFO?
Actually, just over a year.
Alrighty, just over a year. And within that research, you obtained all that information yourself, correct?
Correct.
And you had people fact checking your information and researching it alongside you?
Well, no one was researching alongside me, but it was published, so obviously someone else reviewed it.
Don't you publish your own, you publish your own articles, correct?
Well, the Rationalist Society and the Rationalist magazine publishes a lot of my articles.
And they check your articles beforehand?
Yes.
Alrighty, no further questions, Your Honor. I still object to this witness being an expert under the grounds they do not have enough sufficient knowledge to not only be considered an expert in DRUFO, but to be considered an expert in agritech.
Okay, Ms. Linguist, I heard your statement earlier, but do you want to add anything?
Yes, Your Honor. As previously stated in the pretrial ruling and in Rule 702, an expert does not need to have a formal degree. They just need to have a wide base of knowledge, which has been established for Skylar Weirs.
Ms. Madden, anything else?
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff still believes that this witness does not have enough credible knowledge to be considered an expert and accurately testify about Drufo and Agritech.
So as I indicated in the pretrial order of Rule 702, a witness has to be qualified by having one of several criteria. It's not for me, but it's for the jury to determine the sufficiency of that criteria once a threshold has been reached. In this case, I believe that threshold has been reached, and it goes to weight, not admissibility of this testimony. So I will allow him to testify as an expert in the field proffered. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I continue?
Right.
Thank you. So in regards to modern agritech and fertilizers, what elements are typically used in a fertilizer?
Nitrogen is typically used. It's typically in a synthetic form, though.
And this nitrogen, what effects could this have on somebody?
Really horrible ones, to be honest. Cancer, reproductive issues, thyroid conditions, not to mention the environmental impacts that are associated with nitrogen use.
And how much of this synthetic nitrogen is needed in most fertilizers?
Well, most fertilizers need to be applied 5 to 6 times per year, so quite a bit of nitrogen is being used each time.
And what fertilizers don't need application quite as often?
Drufo and Lush fertilizers do not.
Drufo and Lush don't. And how does Drufo and Lush fertilizers work?
Well, Drufo is an incredibly effective bonding agent, so less fertilizers needed to be used in order to achieve the desired effect. Additionally, Drufo is an incredibly effective, or it reduces the solubility of Lush fertilizers and therefore lessens the amount of fertilizer that's going to be contaminating the environment.
All right, and what other benefits does Drufo have?
Drufo also is an effective pesticide, so other pesticides don't need to be added, which often contain carcinogens.
What carcinogens could be included?
Glyphosate, arsenic, those are the main two.
All right, and what does the International Agency for Research on Cancer classify glyphosate and arsenic as?
Glyphosate is classified as a possible carcinogen, and arsenic is classified as a carcinogen.
And what can carcinogens cause?
They can cause cancer, unfortunately.
And what products are these carcinogens found in?
Most fertilizers in the current agritech industry.
But what is Dakota saying caused their cancer?
Drufo and Lush fertilizers, which don't use those carcinogens.
And what definite link does Drufo have to cancer, especially since it contains none of these previously listed carcinogens?
None. Truly, Drufo makes using pesticides and fertilizers safer, as other pesticides don't need to be used, which often contain carcinogens. Truly, Drufo is an incredible innovation within the agritech industry.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weers. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Med, you may cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Weers, you work for The Rationalist, correct?
That is correct.
And The Rationalist is a science magazine?
Correct?
And they write about all different kinds of science?
Yes.
And you write about all different kinds of science?
That is true.
And part of that science was agritech?
Correct.
And as part of that science you wrote, that was a series on agritech?
Yes, as I've previously established.
And one of those articles was about Drufo?
Yep.
And Drufo contains nitrogen?
That is correct.
And nitrogen is known to be carcinogenic?
Yes.
Ready. And Drufo is also a pesticide?
Correct.
And pesticides are by definition poison and also can be carcinogenic?
Correct. But as I've stated, Drufo doesn't have other pesticides in it, which are more harmful to health.
Alrighty. Do you consider Drufo safe?
I would consider it
even
safe.
though it contains 2 carcinogenic elements?
Well,
nitrogen and
consider it safe.
pesticides?
Yes, but the pesticides, it's Drufo in itself is a pesticide, not.
Alrighty.
not-
Thank you, Mr. Weers. Your sibling is Dakota Wires, yes?
That is correct.
And they have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Unfortunately so.
And that is the allegation of their non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is being caused by Drufo?
That is what they are, that's what they are claiming.
Drufo, that as you have stated, does contain two carcinogenic elements?
Yes, but it doesn't
All right,
contain.
thank you, Mr. Weirs. Your writing, does that generate income?
It does generate some income.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance, what does the monetary income of this witness have to do with Drufo?
Ms. Madden?
Your Honor, this is important. Under Rule 403, it is any statement that makes a fact more or less true. And this is important to understanding Mr. Wire's possible financial bias in the case.
Anything further, Ms. Lindquist?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
I do believe it goes to the credibility and motivation, well, the credibility of the witness. So for that purpose, it is relevant. I'm going to allow it.
And Mr. Weirs, your writing generates income?
Yes, it does generate some income.
And your writing, have they become more popular with this case?
With this case, do you mind clarifying?
Yes, excuse me. I will ask a different question just to clarify. Your writing, is your writing popular?
Objection, relevance, what does the popularity of this witness's writing have to do with the case at hand?
Ms. Madden?
As we've established, this witness does gain a financial income for their writing. If their writing becomes more popular, that will increase their financial income, further establishing financial bias within this case.
I think it falls in the same category as the last objection of an overrule.
Do you mind restating the question?
Yes. Your writing, is it popular?
I would personally believe so.
Objection, Your Honor, this is outside of the witness's testimony or outside of the witness's statement.
Ms. Madden?
Would opposing counsel be able to clarify their objection?
Yes, these questions that you're asking are asking my witness to draw conclusions that are outside of what the conclusions that they can draw.
Ms. Madden, response.
The witness is free to testify on anything relatively close to the character, and this witness does have a good understanding of their writing and the publicity that it creates.
Now, this
Your Honor,
is
may I respond?
cross-exam. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Lindquist. I should have given you a chance.
Never mind, Your Honor. Continue. I'm so sorry.
Okay. This case is cross-examination, so being outside the scope of the affidavit is not a proper objection. The witness certainly could, if he doesn't know, he can say he doesn't know the answer to the question. I'll leave it at that. You may proceed. Overruled.
Thank you. Mr. Weirs, your articles, they're popular, correct?
Yes, they are very popular.
And those articles, as we've established, generate income. And as they generate income, because they've become more popular, they're generating more income?
Objection, asked and answered. This question has been asked before and the witness has answered.
Ms. Madden?
Your Honor, I have not asked this question yet to this witness.
Very honestly, I can't recall whether this specific question was asked or not. I'm going to allow the question. You may proceed.
Alrighty. As your writing has become more popular, you are generating more income. Yes?
Well, it's more on a commission. So each article that I write, I'm being paid for that specific article. It's not as much. I'm getting more money depending on the popularity of an article.
And with this case, because your article has been mentioned, it's been gaining popularity, yes?
Yes, it has.
Objection, asked and answered. We have asked the witness if their article has gained popularity in the past, and the witness has answered.
Ms. Madden?
Your Honor, I'm just simply confirming with the witness, and I have also not asked this specific question to this specific witness yet.
I think in this case, I think you covered this area. I'm going to sustain the objection. Move on.
Thank you, Your Honor. You also have another form of income, yes?
Could you be more specific?
Aside from your writing, you have another form of income?
Yes, I do.
And that's working at Applebee's?
Yes, that is a perfectly reasonable job to have, especially because writing is a hard industry to break your way into.
Yes, of course. Aside from that, you also gamble on occasion. Yes?
Objection, relevance, what is the witness's activities outside of this, of their job have to do with the case at hand?
Ms. Madden?
Your Honor, I'm simply establishing why the witness would have a financial bias in this case. This question is to lay foundation to further explore that, their financial bias.
Can you make an offer of proof to me, Ms. Madden, how somehow, whether he gambles has relevance to this or to his credibility?
This witness has accumulated a lot of debt from gambling, and that is important to understand of how severe a financial bias he may have testifying today.
Ms. Lindquist, anything else?
Your Honor, just because this witness gambles does not mean that they are here for some sort of financial reason that has no relevance to the case.
I'm going to overrule the objection and instruct the jury because I'm concerned about character evidence here. So I'm going to instruct the jury that to the level that his gambling may have caused debt, which would cause him to maybe change his testimony or to have something different in his opinions, it would be relevant. Otherwise, it's not relevant and you should not consider it. You may proceed, Ms. Madden.
Thank you, Your Honor. And from this gambling, you've accumulated a large amount of debt. Yes?
I have accumulated some debt, but that is not relevant to this case.
And do you plan to write more articles now after being part of this case?
Well, writing is my passion, so obviously I would like to write more in my future career.
Meaning you'll generate more income?
Yes. I don't really
no
know.
further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. Redirect, Ms. Linguist.
Yes, Your Honor. Permission to conduct my redirect?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Weirs, are you here for any financial reasons?
Nope, not at all. I'm here to testify about the truth.
And just to clarify a little bit further, why are you here today?
I'm here to stand behind my research about Drufo and other agritech. And in this case, we are calling into question Drufo, and I want to stand behind the work that I've done about Drufo.
Thank you, Mr. Weirs. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any requests based on those questions?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Weirs. Mr. Weirs, you're excused and we will score this witness. Okay, looks like we're ready. Any other witnesses for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
And again, cross-examining attorney, would you please give me your name again? I apologize.
No worries. Rachel Yet.
Thank you, Ms. Yett. Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you. Could you please state your name and spell your last name for our record?
Dr. Devin Williams, Williams.
Thank you. What is your current profession, Dr. Williams?
I lead the toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer and chair the company's ethics committee.
How long have you been employed at Lush Fertilizer?
About 10 years.
And what degrees and certifications do you currently hold?
I have a bachelor's of science in toxicology, a master's in forensic toxicology, and a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology. I also have various certifications in Colorado, Wyoming, New Mexico, and Utah. Those are listed in my CV.
All right, thank you. And where did you attain these degrees?
I got my undergraduate through PhD at Colorado State University.
Okay. And so your research, does that include understanding how the human body is affected by external substances such as alcohol or chemicals?
Yeah, I strive to understand the fates and effects of potentially toxic chemical agents and their interactions with humans.
Okay. Could you take a look at Exhibit 9, please?
Yes.
Do you have Exhibit 9 pulled up?
Yes.
Could you explain what Exhibit 9 is?
That's my curriculum vitae outlining my qualifications.
Thank you. Your Honor, the defense would like to enter Exhibit 9 into evidence.
Is there any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 9 will be admitted.
Your Honor, the defense would like to qualify Dr. Devin Williams as an expert in toxicology and pathophysiology. According to Rule 702, an expert must have knowledge, expertise, experience, training, or education to be qualified as a witness. I have proven that Dr. Devin Williams has all of these traits and should thus be qualified as a witness in toxicology and pathophysiology.
Yet,
There's no objection, Your Honor.
was be so qualified and allowed to express opinions in those fields.
Thank you, Your Honor. Were you the chair of Lush Fertilizers Ethics Committee?
Yes.
All right. And just if you could explain this to everybody, what makes Drufo so special? Why is it important?
Well, with the increasing use of fertilizers, there becomes this issue known as eutrophication, wherein fertilizer runoff pollutes bodies of water with excessive amounts of nutrients, and that causes algae blooms that lead to the die-off of fish populations and harbor harmful bacteria. And that's where Drufo is so special. It binds the ingredients in the fertilizer, and as a result, less fertilizer needs to be sprayed and less is contributing to eutrophication. It's really revolutionary to the fertilizer industry.
That's pretty cool. And has the use of Drufo ever been proven to increase the chances of getting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
The use of Drufo has not been correlated with a statistically significant increase in incidence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now, if you take a large enough group of people, some of them are going to develop cancer, but we've painstakingly analyzed all of the data available, and it's shown that users of Drufo don't have elevated risk compared with users of other fertilizers.
Okay. So the plaintiff claims that Drufo is carcinogenic. What would a valid study need to include in order to prove the plaintiff's claim?
Something like incidence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in farm laborers who use fertilizers with Drufo versus farm laborers who use fertilizers without Drufo. That's apples to apples.
All right. Do you know Dr. Casey Rogers?
Yes.
Okay. And are you familiar with their study regarding Drufo and cancer?
I am.
Okay. What is your professional opinion of this study?
Dr. Rogers' study compares the incidence of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in farm laborers who use fertilizers with Drufo versus casual gardeners who use fertilizers with Drufo versus people who do neither of those things. It's simply bad science. Farm laborers and gardeners are exposed to a wide range of chemical and environmental conditions that everyday people aren't. So it might simply be that that population has an elevated risk of cancer regardless of their exposure to Drufo. It's comparing apples to oranges.
All right. Was Dr. Rogers' study peer reviewed?
It was not.
Okay. Has this study ever been replicated by other scientists?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Williams. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Sapera. Ms. Yet, Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Williams.
Good afternoon.
For Lush, don't you?
Yes.
And you have other sources of income, correct?
I'm an assistant professor in addition to working at Lush.
Thank you. But Lush chose you to come testify about the possible toxicity of Drufo today, correct?
Yes, likely because I lead the research and development labs and have a lot of experience with Drufo.
But also one of the reasons they chose you was because you've worked for Lush for a long time. Is that right?
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation. There is no evidence or proof that that is why Lush Fertilizer picked my witness to testify. There's a numerous amount of reasons, and there is no proof or anything listed in the case study about what the question was asked.
Ms. Yet.
Your Honor, again, referring to Rule 401, anything is relevant if it has the tendency to make a fact more or less true. I'm simply trying to establish the foundation for a possible financial bias that this witness may have, as they do have a strong connection to the company.
Mr. Sapera.
I was not objecting to relevance, opposing counsel. I was objecting to speculation because there is no proof that that is why. You are speculating, and the question is speculative as to why my witness was chosen to litigate.
Want to respond to that, Ms. Yet?
Could I ask my opposing counsel to explain the objection more specifically to which part?
Of course. Would you restate the question so I can pick out the specific part that I had a problem with?
Your Honor, permission to re-ask my question?
Absolutely.
I asked, one of the reasons they chose you was because you worked for Lush for a long time, right?
Your Honor, opposing counsel, I objected as speculation because there is no proof or evidence as to Lush Fertilizer choosing my witness to come onto the stand today for that reason. It is pure speculation by the opposing counsel, and it is asking my witness to assume and accept their conclusion.
So I'm overall the objection, and cross-examination is a little broader than direct. When it comes to this issue, the witness can say yes, no, or I don't know, or any other number of answers. But I think the question's proper. I'm going to allow it.
Would you like me to re-ask my question?
Yes, please.
One of the reasons Lush Fertilizer chose you to come testify was because you've worked for Lush for a long time, right?
I suppose that could be one of the reasons.
Thank you. Let's talk more about that employment at Lush. When you were first hired, you were hired on as a technician, is that right?
Yes.
And your job as a technician was to work in the lab and help them catch up on any work that they could be behind on, right?
Objection, Your
Yes,
Honor,
well, at the
relevant.
time,
I don't understand how what my witness first did when they were first employed by Lush Fertilizer is relevant to the topic at hand regarding Lush Fertilizer's negligence in their product, Drufo.
As yet?
Your Honor, again, referring to Rule 401, anything is relevant if it has the tendency to make a fact more or less true. I'm simply establishing the foundation for this witness's financial bias in this case.
If I may respond, Your Honor.
Sure.
I'm objecting because I don't see the relevance in what they used to, in what their job entailed as in relation to anything financial or any sort of financial motives. I don't understand. If opposing counsel would explain how what they used to do for their job is related to their financial bias in this case, I would be more than happy to listen to that, but I still believe it is irrelevant.
Your Honor, if I may
I'm going to
respond.
overrule. No, I don't think you so. I'm going to overrule the objection. I think this goes again to bias and credibility. We're getting some foundational questions possibly as well here. And so I'm going to give some leeway. Again, this is cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like me to re-ask my question, Dr. Williams?
yes.
Your job as a technician was to work in the lab and help them catch up on any work that they were behind on. Am I right?
Yeah, well, at the time I started working at Drufo, at Lush Fertilizers, about 50% of the staff who had originally developed Drufo had moved on. So I was also there to hasten a smooth transition.
Yeah, let's talk more about that 50%. That was a pretty big part of the team, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's back up just a little bit. As a result of the Lush team struggling with timeliness, you were promoted relatively quickly to actually lead the labs from technician.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. Nowhere in the case problem does it ever mention that my witness rose through the ranks quickly.
Ms. Yet?
Your Honor, I'm not asking this witness to speculate on anything. I'm simply asking about their promotion at their time at Lush, which they have full knowledge of.
Again, the cross-examination being outside the scope of the affidavit, it's not a proper objection. The witness can answer yes, no, or I don't know. So overruled.
Would you like me to re-ask my question, Dr. Williams?
Yes.
No problem. As a result of the Lush team struggling with timeliness, you were promoted relatively quickly to actually lead the labs at Lush from technician. Is that right?
Well, I don't think I was promoted abnormally quickly. I'm a hard worker, and we've already gone through my credentials. So I think it was a reasonable decision in a reasonable time frame.
Of course, but that was a pretty big promotion, right?
It could be considered a major promotion.
Significant jump, correct?
I'd consider it a natural progression, but yes.
Okay, we'll move on to talk about Drufo. You spent a pretty long time on your direct examination talking about how amazing Drufo is, right?
Yes.
How great it is for the environment.
Yes.
But Drufo is banned in the EU, correct?
Yes, under the EU's nitrate directive, no new fertilizers can be allowed that contribute more than incidental nitrate accumulation in lab tests. And now these EU bureaucrats are too short-sighted to see that in real-world conditions, Drufo actually greatly reduces the amount of nitrate accumulation. And at the moment, I'm working on publishing a study to that effect, and hopefully we'll be able to overturn the EU decision. It's a real tragedy.
Thank you. Just to clarify, it was banned because of the amount of nitrate accumulation, yes?
It was banned because it contributes more than incidental nitrate accumulation in unrealistic laboratory conditions.
Was that a yes to my question?
Yes.
Thank you. So in order to continue selling Lush products in the EU, Lush decided to take Drufo out of them, correct?
We were a small company and we didn't have the resources at the time to fight the EU decision. So although using Lush would be more environmentally friendly, we did remove the product from our lines in Europe.
Okay, thank you. And just again, you did despite it being bad for the environment.
Objection, Your Honor.
It's not bad for the environment.
I'm just going to object to that question. That's an argumentative question. That question asks my witness to accept the opposing counsel's conclusion rather than a fact. There is no proven fact that Drufo is bad for the environment.
I was simply trying to highlight a part of this witness's answer, as they did say it wasn't very environmentally friendly. I was just simply trying to reiterate that, Your Honor.
I think it's proper cross overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like me to restate my question, Dr. Williams?
Yes.
You removed Drufo from Lush products despite it being bad for the environment, right?
Well, the removal of Drufo from products, yes, Drufo in itself is good for the environment. So by removing it, it is worse for the environment in that sense. But we were a small company and simply didn't have the resources to fight the EU decision.
But it was just easier to remove it, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's move on. Did you ever hear about the possibility of baking Drufo?
I'm not familiar with that.
Did you hear Blake Doncourt testify earlier in court here today?
Yes, but that's still not within my witness statement.
Okay, but did you hear Blake talk about the possibility of baking Drufo?
I did hear him, yes.
Thank you, but Blake never asked your opinion on it, did they?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance. That question, I fail to see how it's relevant in proving any facts regarding Lush Fertilizer's negligence.
Ms. Yet?
Your Honor, I'm simply trying to establish this witness's role within the company of Lush Fertilizer, as well as their connection to Blake Doncourt.
If I may respond, Your Honor.
You may.
We've already previously established multiple times what my witness's role is. I've established it in my direct, and you established it in the very beginning of your cross.
Again, I think that cross-examination is a lot broader, Mr. Zampa, than I think you perceive. And I'm not being critical. I just think that this goes into what's the relationship, Mr. Doncourt, did he ask about this to one of the professionals in his company? So I think it's relevant. I'm going to not allow that question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat my question?
Yes.
Okay, but Blake never asked your opinion on baking Drufo, did they?
Baking Drufo is not necessary because Drufo doesn't cause cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think you understood my question. Blake Doncourt never asked your opinion on baking Drufo, did they?
Well, I can't say for sure they did or didn't ask me.
But you said earlier that you've never heard about it prior to today.
It is not within the scope of my witness statement.
Okay, that's okay. You're not sure if they asked you prior to today, though.
No.
Objection, Your Honor,
No.
badgering my witness. Asked and answered. The opposing counsel has asked the question about whether or not they're sure they heard about Drufo today multiple times, and my witness has answered multiple times that it is outside of their testimony.
As yet, I'm going to sustain that objection.
Okay, I can move on. Now let's backtrack a little bit, Ms. Doncourt. You are an employee of Lush, correct?
Yes.
A paid employee, right?
Yes.
And you work for Blake Doncourt, don't you?
Yes, indirectly.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect, Mr. Sempera?
Sorry, Your Honor. Yes, just a brief redirect.
You may proceed.
Dr. Williams, Drufo, is the reason Drufo is banned in the EU have anything to do with carcinogens?
No. It is purely out of concerns for nitrate accumulation, though those concerns are misguided.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Dr. Williams. Your Honor, the defense would like to rest.
Ms. Yet, did you have a recross based on that one question?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so the defense rests, and we'll take a minute to score, and then we'll do closings. Everybody ready? Okay. Ms. Yet, I assume you're giving the plaintiff closing?
Yes, Your Honor. And at this time, the plaintiff asked to save any remaining time for rebuttal.
Granted.
Thank you so much. And before I begin, I just want to confirm that my timekeeper is ready.
Certainly.
Awesome.
We got him ready. Thank you for confirming.
Thank you. Profits over people. Ladies and gentlemen, today you've heard the case of Dakota Wires versus Lush Fertilizer. Today, You have seen how Lush Fertilizer is at fault for giving Dakota this terminal illness. Lush has shown you that they simply ignored the warnings and the worries that were presented to them about their revolutionary product, Drufo. They had every opportunity to make Drufo a safer product for the people, yet didn't. Ladies and gentlemen, they simply couldn't care less about the people who trusted and supported their company. Blake Doncourt, the founder of Lush, was focused on making a profit rather than protecting the people. This selfish, money-hungry CEO simply ignored the warnings and the worries that were presented to them about their product. They were simply uninterested in the well-being of the people who trusted and supported Lush. Blake would rather waste time boasting about the environmental awards than addressing the flaws and the faults of their own company. Skylar Wires, a beat journalist and a self-taught researcher with no college degree or training in agritech, they have brought you no noteworthy or accurate information here today. The very twin of Dakota cares less about their own sibling than they do making a profit and getting a paycheck from this case. The twin of Dakota cares more about making a profit than they do the people. Devin Williams is a paid employee of Lush Fertilizer, their job being here today to make money for Lush. Devin Williams and their money-focused mindset led them to choose profits over people. They would also rather talk about nitrate removal in their products rather than addressing the faults of the company and justifying their so-called environmental label while killing people. I would now like to direct your attention to jury instruction number 3. Please read along silently with me as I read aloud. If a manufacturer of a product knows or in the exercise of reasonable care should know that 1, the use of the product may be harmful or injurious to a user, and 2, that the risk of harm or injury is not obvious to a reasonable user, then the manufacturer must use reasonable care to warn the user of the risk of harm or injury if a reasonably careful person would under the same or similar circumstances. The failure to do so is negligent. Ladies and gentlemen, Lush Fertilizer was simply negligent. They decided to choose profits over people. Blake Doncourt neglected the allegations of Carson Durst and other scientists who at the time worked for Lush Fertilizer. Blake made the catastrophic and destructive decision to not bake Drufo, which resulted in detrimental consequences. They wanted to make a profit, not protect people. Blake would rather save a quick buck than save Dakota. Ladies and gentlemen, blame Blake Doncourt. Today, you were presented with rock-hard evidence that Drufo is dangerous. So what makes it acceptable to continue to be sold on the market to at-risk and vulnerable people? Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you find in favor of Dakota Wires, who is asking $15 million in damages against Lush Fertilizer. Lush Fertilizer, who gave Dakota this horrible illness. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, that Lush takes responsibility and be held accountable for putting profits over people. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Give the timers just a second to reset.
And yeah, before I begin, just to check in and make sure timekeepers are ready.
Got 1. All right, we're ready. Ms. Lindquist, you may proceed to closing.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, opposing counsel and members of the jury, good afternoon and thank you for your time during our trial here today. It wasn't their fault. What happened to Dakota Weirs is a tragedy. Everyone has heard the toll that non-Hodgkin lymphoma has taken on their life, how their dream of playing piano came crashing down. We empathize with Dakota and understand how difficult this is, but it was not the fault of Lush Fertilizers or the chemical Drufo. As an employee of Haven Landscaping, Dakota was exposed to a variety of different chemicals. This company didn't take any of the proper safety precautions or instruct their employees to do so. And Drufo was not the only chemical Dakota was exposed to. And it wasn't the chemical that caused their cancer. The plaintiff in this case holds the burden of proof. They must prove that it was more likely than not that Dakota Weirs' cancer was caused by Drufo and that Lush Fertilizers willingly held back safety information regarding the possible harmful effects of Drufo. I want to remind you as our trial comes to an end that if you find it even a little bit more likely than not that Drufo did not cause Dakota's cancer, or that Dakota could have been at fault, by not wearing the protective gear that was recommended. You must rule in favor of the defense. Throughout the course of this trial, you have heard evidence from both sides of the case, all arguing the same question. Did Drufo cause Dakota's cancer? Let me refresh your memory. Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizers, told us that Lush is committed to personal safety and would never endanger the lives of other human beings with their products. They wouldn't hurt people. They love their customers. They would choose people over profits, not profit over people. They ran countless tests on the product, and all of them said the same thing. It is safe, effective, and definitely non-carcinogenic. There was no evidence whatsoever to suggest that Drufo could cause harm to anyone. You also heard from Skylar Weirs, an investigative journalist and Dakota's twin. They told us about how Drufo helps reduce the nitrogen that goes into our lakes and our rivers and our oceans, how because it is so effective, there is no need to add carcinogens like glyphosate and arsenic. Finally, you heard from Dr. Devin Williams, the leader of the Toxicology Research and Development Lab at Lush Fertilizers, who stated that Drufo has no link to non-Hodgkin lymphoma or any other cancer for that matter. They criticized Dr. Rogers' study, saying that if you study any large group of people, some will get cancer, exposed to products or not. Dr. Rogers, the plaintiff's hired expert and the first big flaw in their case. Dr. Rogers' study, a base that this case is built on, says that there's a correlation between Drufo and cancer, but what the plaintiff tried to avoid is that this study has never been peer-reviewed, meaning the group of their peers has not read and evaluated this study for accuracy. Dr. Rogers also has a huge financial motive for saying what the plaintiff wants him to say, including stating in their own words, "This will be the first time I have ever actually had to testify as an expert witness. I'm hoping, however, that it will not be the last." Carson Durst, an ex-employee of Lush, testified that the company knew their product wasn't safe and didn't do anything about it. And as much as they tried to avoid it, Carson didn't quit. Carson was fired from Lush. And this email that the plaintiff keeps bringing up, their proof that Lush knew the product was carcinogenic, they chose not to do anything about it. But how can an email like this exist if it wasn't anywhere in Lush's system? And if this is brought up by Carson Durst, who will lie about being fired from the company, who's to say he can't lie about it, something as simple and trivial as an email? Carson knew this product was safe. We all know this product is safe, but Carson couldn't let a company that fired him succeed. Drufo is safe. It is a safe, effective chemical used by a company that is committed to keeping their products safe. Not like the defense said, they wouldn't choose profits over people. They will always choose people over profit. We are all deeply and truly sorry for what has happened to Dakota, but this tragedy is not the fault of Lush Fertilizers or Drufo. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't Lush's fault. Lush didn't cause Dakota's cancer. And with all of the evidence that is presented to you, it's clear that Lush Fertilizers and Drufo are not in the wrong. And with that, we ask you to rule in favor of the defense. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lequist. And can someone tell me how much time is remaining for Ms. Yett? (1:38). Okay, we got it.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
You may be ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, we as the plaintiff representing Dakota Wires have proven to you beyond the preponderance of the evidence here today that Lush Fertilizer was negligent. You heard Blake Doncourt say that they expect landscapers to use fertilizer to use this product Drufo. Dakota was expected to be a reasonable user. Blake Doncourt claimed to always put warnings on Lush's products, but as you saw today, ladies and gentlemen, on the label, there was no warning. There was a simple recommendation. Ladies and gentlemen, a recommendation that a poor 14-year-old girl didn't follow due to the influence of her higher-ups and the simple naiveness of being a teenager. Ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't Dakota's fault. This poor 14-year-old girl who had their life ruined because of this selfish and greedy company. It was Lush's fault. The root of the problem was within Lush Fertilizer, this big corporation who caused this poor young woman's life to be completely ruined. There is definite proof that there is correlation, ladies and gentlemen, between Dakota's cancer and Lush Fertilizer. Correlation is not causation, but there will always be consequences for the decisions that one makes, the decisions that Blake Doncourt made, that Lush Fertilizer made. Ladies and gentlemen, this bright, young, talented young adult has had their life ruined by this greedy and thoughtless company. Please hold Lush Fertilizer accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yett. This concludes this trial. Last round, and I'm trying to do the same thing here for purposes of best witness and best attorney. Would all the attorneys and witnesses please turn on their video cameras? And if any of the scoring panels have questions about who is who, and let me know. I think we're trying to get that all worked out. While they're scoring, we're going to break right after they get the score submitted. I want you all to understand, I thought this is an excellent round, and want to congratulate both of you. It's clear you guys are good teams here, and I hope we get them to move on to the state. We won't be taking any other comments after this, just because we run a little bit late. So when scoring panels, when you have submitted your score sheet, please let me know. I got 2.
Judge Willman, if we're not going to do comments, I'm going to go ahead and turn off